Sehati Animal Sanctuary is Indonesia's first animal sanctuary for farmed animals. Established in 2017, it cares for more than 270 animals that have been rescued from farms or abandonment. Loong, whom I mentioned before, is the co-founder of the sanctuary, and Nathen is the lead volunteer who joined Sehati Animal Sanctuary in December 2019. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to start a farmed animal sanctuary in Asia. So we will discuss the approach and the challenges of Sehati Animal Sanctuary as the first animal sanctuary for farmed animals in Indonesia. And it will be followed by an interactive design thinking session to determine the best way to start a farmed animal sanctuary in Asia. So without further ado, I will just hand it over to Nathen with his presentation. Take it away, Nathen.
Thank you, Fajar. Thank you for that nice introduction, and thank you, Animal Alliance Asia, for hosting this amazing conference and bringing us all together for a very good cause. So I just thought I'd show my face before I open up the presentation. I'm Nathen. I'm from the UK, and I'm an impact-based marketer. And I've been volunteering with Sehati Animal Sanctuary for about a year now. And yeah, today I'm just going to go through mainly about Sehati Animal Sanctuary and the challenges it's faced, being the first and only farmed animal sanctuary in Indonesia. And then also some kind of like tips on how to start an animal sanctuary in Asia from then on, based on the experiences that Sing and Loong have had, and me included, over the last year. So I'm just going to open up the presentation. And just before I start as well, Loong wants to send his apologies for not being able to make it today. It's been incredibly challenging for them over the last 3 to 4 years. And one of the things that is particularly challenging, as we'll discuss later on, is their access to internet because of all of the palm oil plantation that surrounds them. They've been unable to get internet for a very long time, and now they finally have it, but it's very disconnected. And at the moment, Loong is on the sanctuary alone, so he doesn't feel comfortable leaving the animals there to step away and join the call. So without further ado, I'm just going to start by explaining what a farmed animal sanctuary is, although I'm sure most of you are aware. But basically, there's essentially 3 different types of animal sanctuary. One is obviously a wildlife animal sanctuary, which is the one that is probably most common in Asia, and one that people are most aware about. They particularly deal with wildlife, either from, the exotic pet trade or from deforestation and things like this, where they take in wild animals. Then you have domesticated sanctuaries, which are often more like shelters, and I'll explain the difference between those two later. And domesticated sanctuaries are particularly for animals which are considered as pets. So dogs and cats and rabbits and other animals such as this. Of course, there's a fine line between, obviously, where I'm from in the UK, these would just be pets, and eating them would be unheard of. But here, maybe they could be also considered farmed animals. And that brings us on to the last one, which is the farmed animal sanctuary, which is specifically for animals which are farmed and also used as a commodity, either for food or for other things such as fur or leather, things like this. And of course, the mission of a farmed animal sanctuary is, one, to take these animals from situations which are traumatic and harmful for them, and particularly taking them away from the place where they would experience being slaughtered and killed, and giving them a life which they deserve, which they can live out throughout their time at the sanctuary. So the difference between then a sanctuary and a shelter is that a shelter is more a place where animals will come in and be healed and looked after and then be rehomed from there, which is what's usually typical of a domestic sanctuary / shelter, is the animals would come in and then they would be rehomed. Whereas a sanctuary is often considered more as a place which is like a final home, like a forever home for the animals that come there. And yeah, as I said before, these animals come from many different places, but most often from the farms themselves, particularly farms where there's been really, really bad situation. I can probably go into more detail about a particular pig at Sehati Animal Sanctuary later on, or maybe you can ask us a question later and I can explain more. And yeah, so that's kind of why, or what a farmed animal sanctuary is. And now I want to go on to why they are important. So obviously the very first one, which is probably the most obvious as well, is to save the animals. And it's to provide them with the forever home and to take them away from a place which is traumatic and will end in certain death, and give them a space where they can thrive and live out the rest of their lives. And this is kind of the maybe sometimes a priority of certain farmed animal sanctuaries, but it's also limited to the capacity of your sanctuary. So beyond that, there's many more important factors for having a farmed animal sanctuary. And the next one is to inspire human-animal connection. And so often these animals, particularly the farmed animals, people haven't necessarily experienced what it's like to connect with this kind of animal. They've either had it as a product in the supermarket or as a meal, but they don't know what it's like, what the characteristics of a pig are and what the characteristics of a chicken are, given if they're put in a place where they can, be happy and connect with those humans. So that's a really important part, because it changes how people see the animal and what it can be if they just allow it to be free and to really connect with the animal itself. Also, it can be a great community hub, which is something we've experienced with Sehati now. Just yesterday, we did a 10-kilometer run with 66 people from around the world. And some people here as well were also there. And it was amazing to see so many people coming together for this cause, and the great connections we've made during this time is just fantastic. And I think that will continue as long as there's a place where people can go, whether it's online or in person, and they can connect with these animals and the stories that they have. It creates a real sense of community. And then finally is education, which I think is obviously the most important part at the end of the day, is how the animal sanctuary can change cultures and inspire people to take their own actions, whether that's taking care of animals or becoming vegan. And this can be done both on the ground and online. And particularly what I think farmed animal sanctuaries are good at is this positive reinforcement. So it's not showing you all of the slaughter and the things that can be very uncomfortable to experience, but they're showing you like the opposite side, the positive side of what can it be, not what it is right now. And I think, for each of us, we have our own unique way of connecting with the concept of veganism. And for many, it can come through just experiencing the joy of being around these animals. So as Fajat has already said, Sehati Animal Sanctuary is Indonesia's first and only farmed animal sanctuary. And it was co-founded by Singh and Loong, who Loong is from Malaysia and Singh is from the area of Dumai. And I'll tell you a little bit about their story later. And I just wanted to show a video, and I'll talk about this later. We're doing a crowdfunding campaign at the moment. And because Loong isn't here to speak, I just wanted to show you the video that we've created of the sanctuary itself, so that you can connect with the experience of being there. So I'm just going to play that now.
my name.
Sorry, I'm just going to pause it 1 second. I just wanted to check that you can all hear the sound. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound?
Yes.
Yes, great. Cool, I'll continue.
Sing Hoi.
Hi, my name is Loong.
This is Sehati
Animal Sanctuary. This sanctuary dedicated for farm animal is very important as an education for the people to get connected with the animal, to be close up, to read them, and to learn their behavior.
At Sehati Animal Sanctuary, we have rescued over 200 animals. We had pigs, goats, sheep, chicken, duck, goose, turtles, rabbits, cats, and dogs, and wild boar.
Our current struggle is a financial. Every month, we are not enough to grow, especially to buy food in a big farm, because we ordered food for the pig. We need a big quantity. Every month is not very stable. We are located in Dumai, Sumatra, surrounded by the oil palm plantation in a remote area, isolated because of the pig, and we have to be far away from the neighborhood. The money that we collected from the crowdfundings, we will spend for the pig pens, a new pig pens, which is falling apart, and then to build a volunteer house to help us. We need 2 more staff to help us, to run this place, because me and my wife can't do it anymore, because we need more manpower. And we need a fundraising manager as well, and the account as well. People thought that we are crazy, a crazy couple, because we are in Asia. That is actually a food, a livestock you can sell to get money. But for us, for me, they are different. They want to live like us. We built a special bond with that animal. They are really someone. They had feelings. They do not die as a food for humans. If you give them a chance to live, right, you will see them, how they behave, how they connected to the humans. They are really someone. We are in desperate situations. Please help us to save Sehati Animal Sanctuary by donating today. We need your help so much. And thank you so much for your generosity and your kindness.
Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the sanctuary is like right now. And yeah, there's been a lot of challenges since 2017 when they first started the sanctuary. And I'm going to tell you their story now. Let me just try and get to the other. Oh no. Sorry about that. Okay. So actually before Singh and Loong, they lived in Kuala Lumpur and they worked as travel agents. And this was far removed from what their life was back then. They had no idea what was coming over the next 3 to 4 years. But basically in 2014, Singh had to go back to Dumai to look after her mother, who unfortunately passed away 2 years later. And during this time, Loong was still in Kuala Lumpur and somewhat at times would commute over. And once during Loong's time over in Dumai, they were at a market and they experienced the pig being slaughtered at the market. And it was something that was very traumatic for them. And it made them kind of change almost immediately how they were feeling, and they wanted to become vegan. And actually, during the time when Singh's mother passed away, her uncle, who was a pig farmer, actually gave Singh 3 pigs to look after as a way for her to manage the grieving process. And she became very connected to these 3 pigs. And a couple of months later, of course, as a pig farmer would do, he came to Singh and asked, "Oh, now we need to take the pigs and we need to sell them." And of course, Singh couldn't do this. She had become friends with these pigs, and that was the defining moment for them. So she refused to give the pigs back to her uncle, and they decided to start an animal sanctuary. Although back then they didn't know it was going to become as big as it was now. They just kind of imagined having these few pigs that they had and looking after them and caring for them. So anyway, Loong sold his house in Kuala Lumpur, and they put all of their savings into buying a piece of palm oil plantation near to Dumai. And yeah, that's basically how it started. They removed some of the trees. They built a home, and a home for the pigs as well. But of course, once they started, they soon realized that there were many more animals in need around them. So they started to rescue animals here and there from farms and from the street. They also have a lot of dogs and cats as well, and the turtles, which they would just find in the street, and they would take them in because they were stray, and also in that area, these animals are all eaten. So that's how it happened. And now, 4 years on, they have it's almost near to 300 animals, which is crazy because it's still just the 2 of them there looking after the animals. So they're working from the time that they wake up until the time that they go to sleep. They're taking care of all of these animals. And yeah, of course, as you can imagine, that brings up a lot of challenges for a couple of people who lived in the city and didn't know what they were getting themselves into. So in fact, there were a couple of challenges which I'm just going to share now, and we'll go more into detail about how you can avoid having these challenges as well. So the first one was the location itself. Of course, they didn't really think about it. It just needed to be close to Singh's family. And unfortunately, the palm oil plantation, of course, it's been monocropped for such a long period of time. The soil is essentially dead. And then when they removed the palm oil, it also dried out. But because it was so compacted, the drainage systems were all extremely difficult. So during rainy season, there was a lot of flooding, and this definitely provided challenges, particularly in the pig shelters. So actually at the moment, since we're still working on the campaign to build a better shelter, Loong is out there most days, making sure to clear the drainage out so that the water can run out. In addition to that, there was no electricity on the site to begin with. The access road is basically just used for collecting the palm oil kernels. So again, it's also not very good. It's not a road at all. It's just a mud track with which lorries drive through in the rain. So you can imagine what that's like. And then also, of course, the no internet, which they do have now, and they've managed to be able to communicate a lot better. But from the beginning, it's always been a big challenge for them. Secondly is local adoption. So I don't know if you noticed in the video, Loong said that they chose this location because of the pigs. And what he means is that the area of Dumai is a predominantly Muslim area, and the pigs are seen in Muslim tradition as a food taboo, and also the pigs themselves are seen as like haram. And I guess this is not the case for all Muslims, but this is how Loong has expressed it to me, and what I should share about their experience. So they're kind of known as the crazy couple by the people around them. And this is kind of given them some challenges surrounding like trying to get people in to work with them, to get construction, to get food. They found many times that they've been kind of taken for granted, and they've been overcharged for things when they didn't really know how much the price of things are, and particularly because they were trying to rescue what other people around them either saw as a taboo or as a food, depending on the religion and the culture. And if you look at Indonesia as a whole, there's also very little basic rights for farmed animals. And so you can imagine that the culture around it is also very limited. And this is the first farmed animal sanctuary. So they're diving into something which is kind of uncharted, and that definitely brings a lot of cultural clashes. Thirdly, garnering support from people. So that they start an Instagram account from the very beginning. You can scroll back through that and see how it's changed over the years. But they kind of didn't get enough people following them or engaging with them, and particularly because they're so isolated in the palm oil plantation, that it's been really challenging for them to get the finances that they need to support the animals, which is their other greatest challenge, which is getting enough money for the food and for the building of the infrastructure, which is what we've been working on over the last year. And then finally is the veterinary services, which, as you can imagine, in a place where these animals are seen as just a commodity, the ability to do sterilizations and vaccinations and these kinds of things is not necessarily the best. And actually, the one vet nearby that they've managed to bring in, who is willing to do the sterilizations, he actually had to learn how to sterilize sheep by looking at YouTube videos and talking to his friends. It's not something that he is taught as a vet, is how to sterilize these animals, because it's not usually what is done in the common practice. So that was definitely a big challenge for them, is making sure that all of the animals are sterilized, and having access to the vet when they need it. Of course, he's also quite far away, so it can be challenging if they have like an animal that gets sick, then it takes time for the vet to get to them as well. And yeah, as I go through and share from their experience and from my experience, how you could do better than they have, so to speak, from the very beginning with the lessons that they've learned, I can go into more detail. So the things that you should consider if you are thinking about starting a farmed animal sanctuary is the location, how you're going to fund it, the access to the vets, building your team around you, considering how many animals and what animals you're going to have at the sanctuary, how you set about making it a legal foundation, and then how it integrates with the culture and how you can actually create impact while doing that. So as I shared before, and this picture here is actually Loong. He's been to the market to get food for the animals, and this was maybe a year and a half ago now. And you can see this is not an ideal situation when you have 200 and something animals to look after, is that you have to drive half an hour to get to the nearest village to collect the food on your scooter along this huge bumpy road. So I think what they've experienced now is that maybe they could have chosen somewhere slightly better, considering the accessibility. But one thing that they did, which they're really happy about, is they bought the land rather than renting it. And of course, you could go either way, and there's benefits to both, particularly if you have like a low startup investment or costs, then renting can be beneficial. But of course, then there's a very big chance that at some point the land can be taken away from you. So it's more recommended, if you have the money, to buy the land up front. And future expansion is something to consider as well, because you may start small and want to continue building out. So if you look around you, is there going to be opportunities for you to buy more land or even nearby? And actually, given that the land in this area is so cheap and it's primarily palm oil plantation, it would be quite easy to expand this area. So they could just buy the land around them and continue to expand as the sanctuary grows. And then finally, where are the vegans at? This is kind of, you know, they've come into this place where there's no one who is thinking the same way that they're thinking, and that has been the biggest challenge of all. And we've also actually considered the idea of maybe shifting the whole sanctuary to Bali, because here there's you know, there's many people in the vegan community. There's a lot of support for the vegan movement, and actually I think it would be much more successful to be here, but this is the situation that we have now. So it's definitely good to think about, like, are you going to be at least accepted by a certain group of people in your area, and how are they going to be able to support you through the challenges that you come across? So next is funding, and yeah, as I said, the startup costs, it can vary depending on where you want to start, and if you want to, you know, keep it small and just have like a couple of rescued animals, or if you want to scale up to having 300 animals. Of course, I think the startup costs primarily is for the land, and then building the infrastructure, like having all of the shelters and everything like that. So you have to consider how you're going to go about getting these. And I can give you an estimation for, we've kind of created a pitch for an animal sanctuary in Bali. And this is more like on the upper scale, state of the art, kind of like animal sanctuary plus research center, which would be about $500,000 US. Whereas this is kind of like the top end, and then the lower end, I think, providing that you're giving a good shelter and care to the animals, it can be a lot smaller, of course. But yeah, the big ones to consider here are the land, maybe also the legal fees, which I'll go into later, and then building the infrastructure to be able to probably take care of the animals. And there are a number of ways to continue then to get funding as you go through. So obviously, once you're going to have to invest a lot of money in the beginning, and then once you have the animals there, there's a load of other costs, such as feeding the animals, making sure that the vet bills are taken care of. If you're renting the land, obviously paying for that, and lots of other things which you maybe wouldn't consider from the very beginning, which just pop up randomly, such as like, yeah, fixing the constructions that you have, or like another thing that we're trying to do is planting trees and stuff on the land so that we can kind of provide a sustainable food source in the future. So yeah, these are the 4 things that I've kind of brought out, which have been successful for us over the last year. So fundraising events is really good because it brings the community together as well. And in Bali at the start of November, we had a big fundraising event where we got vegan brands from around Bali to contribute a prize, and we had a huge raffle and live music, and there were over 100 people there, and it was just an amazing feel. But everyone got to learn about the sanctuary through having this fun time, and we raised I think it was about 90 million Indonesian rupiah by the end, which was matched by a generous donor as well, so it was about 40 million on the night. And crowdfunding, which is what we're doing right now. So we're actually in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign. We're trying to raise $70,000 US because we need to build this new pig shelter, and ideally before the rainy season kicks in properly. And crowdfunding is just an amazing way to bring funds in, but also to raise awareness about the animal sanctuary. And we've had people from all across the globe come together and be participating as a fundraiser, like an individual fundraiser. As I said yesterday, we were doing a 10-kilometer run, but also, yeah, just people popping out from everywhere and just coming in and being part of what we're doing. And another important thing is we've increased our Instagram following by double, which makes a big deal, especially going on after the crowdfunding campaign. We can still access the people that want to support the sanctuary moving forward, and we can continue to grow that awareness. And then we have sponsors, and this is also very powerful because it's kind of like, I would say, minimal effort to get the funds that you need. If you can collaborate with a brand and get them to sponsor you a certain amount in return for providing them with a sort of affiliation to the farmed animal sanctuary, and also providing them with kind of like opportunities for advertising and making sure that you're sharing their brand with your following. This is a really good way, and we're really grateful. Actually, during the last month, we've had a company from the US called Chala Bags, who have actually signed on as a official sponsor for the next year. So that's really amazing. And we also have support from Burgreens and Green Rebel and a couple of other people throughout the time as well. And then finally is adoptions. And when I say adoptions, I'm not talking about people coming and picking up a pig and taking it home, but like a kind of a virtual adoption. And some people call it sponsorship as well. But this is like a way that you can directly support and connect with an animal at the sanctuary while providing funds as kind of like a whole, but specifically for that animal. Obviously the funds are kind of directed throughout. It's not direct, but it's about the amount that you need to support that animal. So yeah, we have a lot of animals up for adoption already, and it's just a great way because we also send out, you know, regular updates throughout the year, so you get to know the animal that you're supporting, and it's just a great way to connect. So those are like the basic elements of fundraising for a farmed animal sanctuary, and there are many more, and especially like little campaigns and initiatives, which I don't have time to go into, but feel free to ask questions. As I said, access to vets was extremely challenging for them. So this is another thing that you should consider before you decide on your location, is like, what are the vets around you, and are they going to be able to support you as you need? And yes, it's down to the skills and whether they have time, but also down to their mindset. Like, are they going to be on board with what you're trying to achieve? Because also there can be vets who, you know, if it's a vet that works in agriculture, they may not be as compassionate as they are as someone who is, you know, who's also vegan and is wanting to be a part of that movement. So I think that's really important to have that mindset. And then sterilization is obviously extremely important from the get-go, as we don't want to condone any kind of breeding. And what we have put in place now is that all of the males are being sterilized or have been sterilized. And this is because the males, especially with the pigs, the procedure for the males is maybe less harmful than it is for the females, and by at least doing one side of the gender, it's possible to basically stop the breeding process. So that's why that is important. Building a team, I think this is something that Singing Loong would have loved to have done earlier, because now they're really loving how much support they're getting from the volunteers, and now after the crowdfunding campaign, we're also going to be hiring people to support them more as well. And how many people, obviously that depends on the capacity of your sanctuary, but you definitely have to think about like who can fill these different skill sets that you're going to need, because it's not just about caring for the animals. Of course, you're going to need someone to do that, but you need to have someone who's going to consider like how you're going to get all of your fundraising, all of the administrative tasks of being a non-profit, and also just like the on-site tasks of, for example, at Sehati, we're trying to, as I said before, like grow a garden so that we can feed the animals. This is maybe another skill set which could be very valid to have, especially in a remote location like Damai. So there are a number of different skill sets that you need to consider, and that will kind of determine how many people you want to get involved as well. because up until last year, Singing Long were doing everything on their own. And then we came in as a group of volunteers and helped them do the online stuff. So the administration, setting up like a system of organization and helping with the social media and the outreach and the fundraising. And that took a lot of weight off of their shoulders and allowed them to do what they're passionate about and what is important for them, which is taking care of the animals. So whether you decide to pay or to have volunteers, I think it's good to have a mixture of both. What we found is that many people would like to sign up and volunteer for a farmed animal sanctuary, but not everyone can actually commit to doing that, as it takes a lot of time. And over the last year, we've had many people coming in and out, and it's been amazing to have so much support. And some people have been able to stay and commit, and other people haven't been able to. And even for me as a volunteer, you know, I can only give so much of my time, and I also will need to step back at some point and find other things to do. So actually what we're trying to do now is to bring in some paid staff who can commit fully, because that's what their job is to do. And I think this will also increase the capabilities of the sanctuary to have those people. So we'll be having like another on-site manager who will support Singing Long in their day-to-day work, and someone who is off-site as an administrative manager who will help with the fundraising and reaching out to sponsors and doing all of the legal stuff. And then of course we still have the amazing volunteers who give their time, and it's without them it would be such a challenge for sure. And there's always space for more volunteers, by the way, if anyone's interested. Which leads on to how do you find them? I guess this is a way to find it just by speaking to you guys now and sharing the story and saying that there's positions open, you know. But yeah, I think it comes down to like being able to build that community from the get-go. Like if you've considered the location correctly, if you've considered the culture in the area, which we'll also talk about later, it's down to building that community from the start and kind of bringing people in, and they can volunteer for a day here or a day there, and then getting them engaged and having this snowball effect where you kind of start to see who stands out, who's committed more, and then you can start to maybe pay them or just keep them incentivized in other ways, or maybe they just do it for the love. But I think it has to come from that core community in the very beginning and growing from there. So how many animals do you choose to have at your sanctuary? I know from hearing Singing Long's story that they find it very challenging to say no to animals in need. So I think you can always expect that however many animals you choose to have, there's always going to be more, and they're going to keep coming. So that's why it's important to decide on a location where you might be able to scale. But I think a good rule of thumb is to start with not too many. This is now, it's been very overwhelming for Singing Long because they started with a few, but it grew very, very fast, and the infrastructure was not quite ready, and they weren't quite ready to have so many animals. So it's definitely good to maybe you have some kind of idea about how to have a good processing flow of how you decide which animals you take in. Maybe you just take in ones that are in really, really, really bad situations, which is, of course, it's challenging to do, but this is something that you need to consider as you run a farmed animal sanctuary. And again, yeah, try not to overgo on the amount of land that you have and the amount of staff that you have. I think that can be said from Singing Long as well. Like they probably wish that they hadn't taken on so many, but of course they love all of the animals and they're very happy to have them. So we're just going to get them more staff, and that will help for sure. So the legal status is very important. Right now, Sehati Animal Sanctuary is not a non-profit. Although with the funds from the crowdfunding campaign, we will be setting up as a yayasan, which is the Indonesian version of a nonprofit. And the benefits of doing that is it gives you some kind of recognition as a nonprofit. It's something that people affiliate with as being something maybe better than something which is just like a privately owned situation. So the other benefits are that it opens you up for more grants and more fundraising opportunities, and most definitely more brand collaborations as well, because it helps the brands with their marketing as well if they can say that they support this certain nonprofit. So I think it's highly recommended to try and aim for that. But there is also, it costs money to set up and it costs money to maintain as well, particularly the reporting of your accounts and everything like this. It's something that we're kind of slowly transitioning into now, and particularly for Singing Long, they find it challenging without having the strong access to the internet, and just, you know, a lot of the time, as I think is common in Asia anyway, they pay with cash and they get like a scribbled note of how much they've spent. So keeping on top of that is something new to them, but we're working on that now. And actually in Indonesia, it can be difficult getting a yayasan specifically for farmed animals and animals in general. There's not really any specific category that you can go into for this. So it has to be something where you have either like a human-centered yayasan. So I don't know how this is across Asia and other places, but this is something, again, that we are coming across now as a challenge. But yeah, in general, it's definitely good to move towards having some kind of legal status, and as a nonprofit is ideal. There's also other forms of accreditation that you can get, such as the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries. They have a very rigorous testing of animal sanctuaries. They have a long list of things that you have to meet as requirements. And I think that really shows you up as like a highly regarded animal sanctuary if you can get to that point. And this is something that we'll be working on over the coming years. So cultural integration, as I said before, with Sehati Animal Sanctuary, it's been a challenge connecting with the people in the local area. So it's certainly something that you should also consider is the religious beliefs and the other socio-political beliefs of the people around you. Not just so you can mitigate the risks of that Singing Long experience, but also so you can figure out how you can best serve that community. And also like what animals in that area are most at risk. So I think, for example, in Indonesia, and particularly in Sumatra, cows aren't really an animal which is as common as pigs and chickens and other animals that are farmed. So when you're also selecting animals, you may choose to select animals which are more in the high risk for your area, so that you can have that most impact when educating people around the animals that you have at the farmed animal sanctuary. So yeah, so how will the sanctuary help the local area? And of course, Singing Long went into this with not having any idea that they were going to start a huge animal sanctuary, so it wasn't something that they considered. And what they hope to do now is to do a lot more online education. But I think it's really important when you're thinking about starting a farmed animal sanctuary to choose a location where you are going to be able to invite people in and decide how that interaction between the humans and the animals is going to help the local community, not just for the animals, but for the humans as well. So I know I've kind of rushed through that, but I'm aware that I have a particular time scale to go through. And yeah, so I wanted to kind of provide you with all of this information and give you a chance to think about and process all of the challenges and all of the things that we've learned and how you can maybe do it better for the future. And I wanted to take the time to have these breakout rooms where we'll be doing something which is called design thinking. So essentially you're going to be split into a group of 5 and we'll try and make it country specific. And what you'll get a list of questions, and the idea is that you do like a rapid design for a farmed animal sanctuary. So you just go through the list, look at the questions, and think about how you could create a farmed animal sanctuary in your local area with your friends that you're about to meet in the breakout rooms. So I'd suggest spending at least a little while getting to know each other, where you're from, and then just go through the questions that I've outlined for you. And you can always refer back to the things that I've said, and I've given a few resources in there as well, which you can look at. But I'd suggest it's quite a short amount of time. So the idea with design thinking is that you just go through it quite fast, like a rapid kind of run through and just like quickly burst out your ideas. And this is actually something we did back in February this year, as we got hosted this thing which I called an Impactathon, and we got maybe 20 people together in a room for the entire day, and we had breakouts into smaller groups and took like different elements of running a farmed animal sanctuary, and we just kind of worked on the idea and started to develop. And that's when we started to build up the brand and the website and lots of other things. So this is kind of a mini version of that. And yeah, I hope you're ready and excited to dive into the breakout rooms.
Hello. Yep. For
Hey,
group
hello.
1. Yep.
So you're from room 1?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from room 1.
Thank you.
So
You can
yeah.
please start sharing.
Okay. So from room 1, we have Poppy, Carlo, Pandu, Violeta, and me. And all of them came from Indonesia, and I came from the Philippines. So for the question number 1, I mentioned that in my country, we don't have, unlike with Indonesia, we don't have a real sanctuary, because my country is composed of several islands, and we have small lands that that can't be turned to animal sanctuary, but we do have several animal shelters in different parts of my country. So even though it's just an animal shelter, some of them also take in farm animals like pigs, chickens, and cows. Yeah, carabao. So yeah. For question number 2, what location will you choose and why? I mentioned that if I will be given a chance to have my own animal sanctuary or animal shelter, I will definitely choose my province, because I have a small amount of land there which I can probably convert or turn into an animal shelter. Even though it's just a small land, I can probably start from a small amount of animals that I can rescue from being slaughtered. And Poppy, Carlo, and Pando mentioned about having animal sanctuary in Jakarta or outside Bali, because Bali is already congested, if I say it correctly, Poppy. So it's hard to attract global audience. So they chose Jakarta, which has more access to do the vegan activities like school and local brands. For the number 3 questions, how can you best serve your community surrounding the sanctuary? So Poppy mentioned about opening the sanctuary to the public so that they can visit and they can learn more and be educated about what is the shelter or the sanctuary is all about. Yep. And for the question number 4, which animals will you choose first? We have a very good discussion about this question. So for me, I've mentioned I will start with rabbit. Although rabbit is considered as domestic or pet, right now in my country, where people are considering rabbit as food consumption, and we have several rabbit animal farms because of the pandemic, and previously there's avian flu. That's why they cannot eat chickens, and there's the food and mouth disease for pigs and cows. That's why they stop eating pigs and cows, but they want an alternative meat, which is rabbit. So I want to start with that. I want to let people know that rabbits are not for food consumption. So for Poppy as well, she mentioned about pig and chicken, since it's easier to take care of. Probably it's because we just have to start from the small until the sanctuary is stable and we can take care a lot of bigger animals. For Carla also, he mentioned rabbit. So I guess we have the same situation with Carlo. For Pandu, I got interested with his question, with his answer. For him, he categorized the animals into three categories. First is the cutest, so that to get the people attention. If you start taking care of cute animals, people will start or people will get the attention, and people will start to be educated about taking care of those animals. He mentioned about national animals as well, like in Indonesia they have the Garuda or the Javanese eagle. So it's about the tapping into the national pride of saving your own national animal, so something like that. And also the third one is in endangered animals like Komodo dragons. And um, we all know that how important it is for the endangered animals to be not extinct. So it's very important also that there is a sanctuary for this kind of animals. Okay. And for the question number 5, how will you obtain the startup cost? Um, Adopting is a good option, as I mentioned by Poppy, and also crowdfunding and working with 2 or 3 local brands and getting famous people or influencer celebrities to help you with your advocacy is a very good option as well for the startup cost. And number 6, how will you develop an online presence and reach a global audience? I, for example, by joining this conference, this will help me get the message across by educating myself first. I can probably share whatever I've learned um, um, to other people via online, especially now that we're in pandemic. I can probably start my own podcast and help people or educate people more about saving the animals or treating animals as friends but and not food. Yeah. So same with the question number 5 earlier. Panda mentioned about crowdfunding, and that's a good way to start to develop your online presence. And just to share one more thing, I just recently got accepted to join the um, Animal Farm Welfare Fellowship. So probably by the next couple of days, I will be seeing you guys again. So that would also help my it's a small start for me to develop my online presence, and probably I can share this to the other people as well. Yeah. Thanks. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
everyone.
much, Carla, for sharing that. Really good point. Nathan, is it okay to come back to you after all the groups so you can comment on all the groups later? Thank you. So spokesperson from room 2, please raise your hand so we can spotlight you. Thank you. So just to let you know, Soha, we've only got like 3-4 minutes per room. So if you can be really concise and maybe pick a few points, not all 6, that would be really great. Thank you.
All right, that's fantastic. Thank you, Ellie. All right, so we decided to place the farm away from the city. We decided to put it in a place called Malir, which has farms close by. So it is easier and less stressful to transport the animals. And we figured we would be able to get the food for the farmed animals from there as well, thereby reducing our transport costs. How can we best serve the community? So I think so we decided on Pakistan because there's pretty much nothing here except for one animal shelter. So one really great way to serve the community would be to engage with the people who already work on the farms and take care of the animals, and ask them to help, ask them to bring the animals over, feed them, and ask them to train us in how to taking care of the animals. So that's a really good way to build relationships and have them involved. And then another way is to get children from schools involved. Aditya talked about how in India they've had shelters work with orphanages and get children involved that way. So that is a really good idea as well. So schools, orphanages, and people who work on the farms themselves can be involved with relationships. Well, are there cultural religious conflicts? Absolutely. Pakistan is an Islamic country. So in Islam, like all animals are fair game. So those are conflicts absolutely present there. Which animals will we choose first and why? So over here, a farmed animal sanctuary would be catering to cows, buffaloes, goats, and chickens. But Aditya very correctly pointed out that if we start taking on cows, buffaloes, and goats first, that would greatly increase our costs because they're bigger animals and require more space, more food, and their veterinary care can also be more complicated. So for example, if we start first, we can start with chickens. How will we obtain startup costs? So it's actually really easy to raise money through donations in Pakistan. Rich people give a lot of money, so we can get donations. Kickstarter campaigns would also be really good. They would help get international attention, and they would also allow money to come in the form of dollars and euros, which would translate to a significant amount in rupees. And also, I think grants would be a really effective way. And developing online presence is through social media. And from our room, we had Patricia from New Zealand, we had Parkin from Uruguay, and we had Katrina from Australia, and Aditya from India, everyone who had really great ideas. And one way to raise funds is that you can build a farmhouse on the land and rent it out for people from upper classes to come and live there, because they'll rent it for a day or maybe 3 days. And that generates a lot of money, and it'll also allow them to see the work. And Patricia had this fantastic, and this was from Joaquin. This was a really good idea from Joaquin. And Patricia had a fantastic idea about like just growing vegetables on the farms. And yeah, so.
Thank you so much, Soha, for sharing this. I think we may have skipped room 2. That was UK, South Korea, Thai, Hong Kong team. Spokesperson for that team, please raise your hand. South Korea, Thailand, Hong Kong team.
Yeah, we have listener. Listener, would you? You're using the clap button, but I think we see.
All right. Oh, hi. We have yeah. So this exercise was a bit challenging because we're all from different countries, so it's a bit hard to agree on a farm. We nominated Indonesia, and same country as Sehati, but yeah. So we proposed the location will be somewhere in the jungle so that the animals are closer to their habitats, but also like thinking about how we can get access to other things in the city. And we chose to use farm animals, so cows, goats, lambs, but also focusing on mostly pigs because pigs are not being eaten. So yep. And we have a fundraising campaign. So we think the income should be from it could come from getting parents in schools to visit the farms and getting exposure to the farm, and that could also be how we get donations. And also social media, getting people to know the farm. We would use a lot of videos, YouTube, Instagram, to give more people information about the farm. Let's see if I'm missing something. Yep, so that's all we have now.
Thank you so much, listener. Okay, let's go to the last room. It was called Others. We had Pin, Ayn, Animal Friends Jogja, Riska, Stephen. Spokesperson, please raise your hand. Anyone from room 4? If not, we can come back to Nathen for comments. Okay, let's do that. Nathen, do you have any comments on what people shared?
Yeah, no, I think it's really great, and especially going around the rooms and seeing like the ideas that you're coming up with. There's certainly things that we could also use at Sehati, so thank you. And I think, yeah, the initiatives and definitely coming from the different countries as well, and hearing about Pakistan is fascinating, and it's really a great experience to hear. And yeah, especially like the idea of like having an Airbnb place within the farmed animal sanctuaries. It has like a dual purpose there of you know, supporting the animals plus having the human animal connection. And you could go even further with this and have like retreat spaces where you have people come and like do yoga, and then yoga with pigs, you know, could be cool. Yeah, so I think fantastic work, guys, and it was really great to hear all of your talks and discussions. So thank you for participating in that.
Thank you.
Was there anyone from room 4 who wanted to speak?
I think we can move on to Q&A since we're running out of time. Fajar, would you like to step back in for Q&A? Let me start with the first question then for Nathen. So we had a question from Hyun Jung Jo. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, from South Korea. She asks, sometimes mass killing of farmed animals is conducted by the government to stop the virus spreading. Have you ever imposed any administrative restrictions related to infectious diseases on farmed animals in Indonesia?
I think that is perhaps beyond my scope of understanding, specifically within Indonesia. Actually, for Sehati Animal Sanctuary, it's very isolated from the outside, and there's barely any people or other animals coming into the place itself. So since the start of the pandemic, for example, it's been essentially closed off from visitors, and there's been only a few new animals introduced to the area. So I guess that's kind of like how it hasn't spread to the sanctuary at all. But on a broader scale, I'm not sure if I can answer that. Sorry.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nathen.
For the next question, it's a combination of two questions actually, from Pandu and Aditya from Indonesia. So Pandu asked, how can local Indonesians that are not so deeply involved in the movement help more, other than usual donations and social media sharing? And similarly, Aditya asked, apart from vegans, who are some of the stakeholders you think are ideal to approach for fundraising?
Yeah, good questions. So I think there's many ways to get involved in the vegan movement, and particularly farmed animal sanctuaries. We do have like places open for volunteers who want to support, and we have quite a fluid system of support. So if you have skills that you think might be useful, it can be anything from writing to having discussions to yeah, doing some social media stuff, or being on site at the farmed animal sanctuary itself. There are many ways to get involved that way. And also, actually, I know you said besides from sharing on social media, but the sharing can go beyond social media as well. And just being out in your daily life and kind of expressing that you know about the sanctuary is really valuable as well. So I think that would be my answer to this question. And then secondly, I think other stakeholders that could be ideal to approach. I think actually beyond vegans, there's still a lot of compassion for other animals. So sometimes there's a lot of ignorance. But actually, if we can connect people to the animals, they don't necessarily have to be vegan, although it's preferable. But we've found through the crowdfunding that we've done now, it's not necessarily just vegans who are getting involved, but people who, for example, love dogs already, or they've seen Instagram videos of cute pigs and they want to support anyway, which obviously is maybe contradictory, but we still find that there's plenty of people who want to get involved without being vegan, and we welcome that as well.
Thank you, Nathen. So next question is from Soha, who would like to know if Sehati has partnered with veterinary programs or universities from other parts of the world to set up a rotating medical facility for the animals, or train a team of local vets to provide medical assistance for the animals at Sehati.
No is the short answer. I think it's a fantastic idea, actually, and it's maybe something that we could work on in the future. I think because of the financial situation and the lack of support that they've had previously, there's been other priorities, and just trying to work with the vets in the area has been what they've worked with so far. But this is definitely a fantastic idea to get other vets involved, and to maybe, you know, as we shared already, have that retreat space, but for vets instead, so they can come and experience what being on a farmed animal sanctuary is like. So fantastic idea. I will keep that one, and we will try to implement it.
So Katrina from Australia has another idea, actually, in regards to fundraising. Does Sehati have any program where people can donate a little bit, but often? For example, in Victoria, Australia, there's a farm sanctuary where she donates $5 per week, automatically taken out of her bank account. Is it possible to implement that for Sehati, you think? Or are there any plans to implement that?
We have that already. So if you want to go to the website, sehatianimalsanctuary.org, on the first page, there's a donate button. And yeah, there's the option to do like a monthly or weekly donation. And we also offer like a virtual adoption, which is, I don't think $5 we have, but you can still do that as a regular donation. But we have certain animals, such as a chicken, for example, is about $15 US per month to support a chicken for its lifetime. So there are definitely ways that you can have recurring funds through Sehati. Yeah.
So another idea is from Pin from Taiwan. She asked, have you thought about opening Sehati to the general public and charge them at entry fee, or some seasonal program like summer camp, for instance?
Yeah, I think currently the animal sanctuary has not been in the best position to be able to do that because of its location, and also because of the financial struggles that it's having, because you need to have like a proper infrastructure such as the access road and a place for people to stay. So this is something that we're working on now after the crowdfunding campaign, is to initially open up for volunteers to come and stay for a longer term. So we'll be building some volunteer housing. But for the general public, we see this as kind of like maybe a 5-year plan, to the point where we have everything set in place to allow people to come in. And probably we wouldn't want to charge an entry fee per se, but maybe request for people to give donations if they feel inclined, just to enable there to be more accessibility. But certainly, yeah, the summer camps and other things is great ideas as well. And any kind of retreat or event that we can host, which doesn't negatively impact the animals, would be fantastic.
And next question is from Kaho, who would like to know if the process of rescuing the animals has been difficult, or if you've encountered any difficulties in rescuing the animals.
Yeah, so I can't speak for that because I haven't been there for the animal rescues themselves, but I know that it is definitely a challenging experience, and it's very traumatic as well. And it's something that I don't think will ever be easy to do. Often the animals that they rescue are not in very good condition. And I actually said I would share, so maybe I can do this now. I can share the story of Ellie, who was one of the first pigs to arrive at the sanctuary. She was in a farm where she had been basically poked in the head with a pointed metal bar, and it had ruined the side of her face. And I've seen the photos, and it's extremely traumatic to experience. But so they were able to approach that farmer and rescue Ellie, who now lives at the sanctuary, and her face is healed. If you go onto the Instagram, you can see some of the photos there of how she looks now, and you can see the wounds, but they are just scars now.
So Kaho would also like to know actually what inspired you to work at a sanctuary in Indonesia, although there are other sanctuaries in the UK.
Yes, well, I've actually I've been spending a lot of time in Indonesia, and I see this as like a great point of impact. You know, the vegan movement is still quite new in Indonesia, and so I felt inclined to maybe support this sanctuary over ones in the UK. Furthermore, it came to me as kind of word of mouth. So someone shared with me their story, and I knew that I had the skills to be able to help them, and it just came at the right time. So there wasn't particularly thought put into going directly for somewhere in Indonesia. It just kind of happened that way. I'm very glad it did.
And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ain't from Myanmar. How do people at Sehati mentally deal with the fact that there are limitations on the number of farm animals that you can rescue?
Yeah, I know singing along, they really have a hard time saying no to taking on new animals. And it's something that we've had to implement over the last year. Before, they were still taking in and trying to support as many as possible. But we know that in the overall, it's actually going to be better to support the ones that we have and to scale properly when we have the capacity to do so. I think speaking to them about it, it's just always something hard to process and go through. And I think now they just, they're always going to carry the weight of the experiences that they have. But they find some solace in the fact that they are able to support the animals that they have and care for those. So yeah, I think that's the best I can answer to that.
Thank you so much, Nathen. And I think that's it for the Q&A. Thank you so much for everyone who participated in this session. It's been very fruitful, and I hope you all learn or gain something from your breakout room conversations and from the entire session as well. So once again, thank you, Nathen, and participants. As mentioned before, Sehati is active on Instagram and Facebook and has its own website where you can get to know more about their activities, their day-to-day operations, and the global crowdfunding event that's still going on until December 8th, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 6th. December 6th, I think. There you go. So that's it. That's for Sehati, and